Welcome to Tastes Like Tea, a podcast about me. My name is Theo. Don't call me Ted. I almost didn't make an episode today. I kind of really want to get back, not get back into, but I am writing something right now. And I was thinking about talking about that. But, in case it's a good idea, which it probably isn't, I'm just doing it quietly. I also don't know if I can pull off an hour talking about it, but today I decided to record anyway, even though I don't know if I really felt like it or not. The episode is going to be, as I decided a moment ago, about films I fear. It's a weird topic. It's a little inexplicable, but other than the fact that I already screwed up my what I watched last week to do another what I watched. I can't do one of those. And actually, no, the films that I could talk about for the end of last weekend, they're not bad films. I just feel like it's not worth talking about. I shouldn't say they're not worth talking about. I don't think I can say much about them that wouldn't be ignorant. I know the whole thing is I'm me, and I only have a certain amount of context that I can give anything in the world, and that's kind of the whole point. I have a taste that is definitionally unlike anyone else, as per humanity being unique in some way, shape, or form. But those films, maybe I'll save them, because there's stuff going on in those films that are probably worth talking about. I watched Wanted, that shit's pretty good. Wanted's awesome. But I'm talking about films I fear today. I guess before I do, because I've been pretty consistent with it, but I forget things easily, so I have an email, anythingbutted@gmail.com. It's just an email where you could email me for whatever the fuck reason. I feel like I'd be denying you. See, I don't necessarily care about having the email exactly, but because I, as a actual podcast listener, I like to reach out to podcasts sometimes just for random notes. One guy made a comment about how he's I've never met someone in the entire world that sleeps with a hat on. And guess what I did throughout almost the entirety of high school is I tried to sleep with a hat on. So I, told him about it. So small shit like that. And although I'm not expecting anybody to be interested enough at all to even use it, but it's more or less not having it is denying anybody the opportunity to do so. And that sucks. So, yeah. Talking about films I fear. I made a list. When did I make this? I think I dated it, actually. August 3rd, 2025. God, I'm so good at stuff sometimes. Like I said, this is going to be films maybe I didn't say it yet, but these are specifically films I have never seen before and have actively avoided seeing as much as possible. A few I do know a decent amount of just because of existing and listening to the podcast that I do. It's also not a huge list. The way I've been doing it, so I constructed a list of films that I use the word fear, and I think it's actually kind of dumb, because as a person who is a big fan of Donnie Darko, dividing things into love and fear is too didactic and not conclusive of the human condition. So, right off the rip, I'm kind of already shooting myself in the foot in a way, because I'm generalizing, and that feeling of fear could be anything. But the fact that I don't, or at least at the time that I made the list, didn't fully understand, which I still don't fully understand. I would say I understand it more now that I've watched through a few of them. And what I've done is, as I conquer, that's a stupid word to use for watching films that you're a little afraid to watch, but as I conquer these films, they are removed off of the list, which I feel like is kind of, again, like shooting myself in the foot. But why would I want to remember? I shouldn't say it like that, because I like talking about how I used to have a horrible fear of Michael Jackson. And I try and bring it up pretty often, but it's not a conversation that's easily brought up. So, there was a span in my life when I was afraid of Michael Jackson. And I remember that. It's not because I wrote it down. It's not because there's a list somewhere of things I was afraid of. It's because it stuck with me. And that's not necessarily to draw parallels between whatever I was just talking about and this list of films I fear, taking them off and forgetting about them. It's not like I forgot. I've watched 2 or 3 of the films out of this list. I think 2. Yeah, 2. Definitively 2. And I will talk about them. But I remember them being on the list. Right? Like, they don't need to be there for me to have memories of this discomfort, this churning in my stomach. I'll use a lot of really weird descriptors, I feel, as I go through this. And you'll notice a theme, as I did. Once I sat on this list for a few months, I did notice a theme and, like, a consistency in things that, like, it's not like I'm out of nowhere afraid of these films. Like, they're all definitely rooted in something. I haven't figured out what that something is yet, but I can sense a trend, I guess is the best way to put it. It's like an innate feeling of discomfort. It could be disgust, repulsion, hatred, frustration. Like, it's just, yeah. And as I wrote in the description of this list, is I refuse to accept the inability to experience these films. Just because I want to watch them to an extent, but also pressing play is a whole other chore than actually saying I want to watch it. It's like 2 different things. I guess let's get into the list part of the list, right? Let's talk about the 2 films I have watched already. And I guess I'll talk about them in order, because I think the conversation will work better that way. Progress in chronological order kind of thing. So, the first film I watched that was on this list, and it genuinely might be the first one I encountered on Letterboxd, because almost all of these films I didn't know existed until I got onto Letterboxd. So I think in chronological order of me finding out about these films, I'm pretty sure that Hardcore is the film that I learned about first, because the poster is just so it's not shocking, it's implying shock, though. It's Let me look it up. And people use it all the time. Like, it's a parodied cover in a lot of things. But it's just the words, "Oh my God, that's my daughter." And then a man distressed. And the word hardcore. And it's pretty effective. I mean, especially thinking about 1979. I don't live in 1979. But I could assume, considering I'm reacting to this in the 2020s, that in 1979 it was probably a pretty intense subject to begin with. But, you know, thinking about, I haven't watched these in a while too. These two films I've watched from this list, January 10th, 2026, and the other one was like a week or so later. So I watched Hardcore, and how do I explain my fear going into it? So, the description, I mean, you don't even need a description. You can just look at the words. The word hardcore followed by, "Oh my God, that's my daughter." It's pretty self-explanatory. It's this man who has, and they build it to be as impactful as possible. And actually, because of that over-exaggeration, I was able to help myself through it a little bit more, because I saw it more as parody at one point, which I think it might be. Maybe it's only horror to the people who it's meant to be, like who it's portraying. We'll get into it. So, this man, Midwest white man, super religious, has a Midwest wife and a Midwest daughter, and he's sending her off to college. And she's super, geeked about going to college and being a good girl student with best grades or whatever, and tied back hair and whatever. She's a good student. She's a religious Midwest white girl. It's told from the perspective of the father, so she's portrayed and seen as divine. Why'd I use that word first? Pure is probably a better way, because we're talking about a religious white man. He sees women as basically an object, just short of an object in the most generalized sense. I mean, this film helps me work through the fear of that, because that's kind of, we'll get to it. I'm sorry, I'm interjecting with conversations I've had in my head already. So he sends off his pure, simple, smiles all the time, good grades, white girl daughter to college off in California. So she's going from like Ohio or fucking, I don't know, Nebraska, very flat lands, very like, the only reason there's people here is because someone built a suburbs here, kind of place. And she goes off to college, and she's gone for I don't know how long. It doesn't really matter, honestly. Honestly, the faster it happens, the scarier it could be to the right person. But some guy, like, I don't know. Okay, right. Dad is like, by the way, Dad is played by some famous dude people like George C. Scott. I've never seen a film other than this he's in, but apparently he's in Doctor Strangelove and The Exorcist 3, which I'll probably watch before Doctor Strangelove. Crazy. But he's eating at a diner or something. Like, he's having lunch, midday meal, or just a coffee or whatever. He's sitting in a public place, and some dude walks up to him that knows him. And he tells him, he's like, "Hey, I saw this like really grimy porn film the other day, and I'm pretty sure I saw your daughter in it. I think that's how it goes down. I don't know how he would have ended up watching porn voluntarily without something like that happening. But this sets off George C. Scott to go on this like moral rampage of like, there's no way that's my daughter. If she's in this film, which he does confirm that it is her. He finds the film. It's hard to find, oddly, which is probably good for him. It's probably better off. Like, yeah, grimier people are gonna see it, but there's like one copy floating around. Like, only a handful of people can see it at a time. That's probably best case scenario, right? Considering the circumstances that this man thinks are happening. So he's like, there's no way my daughter's doing porn. Clearly she's being forced to. Clearly, like, there's no doubt about it that this girl is being forced to do porn. There's no other reason why she would be in this film. And then he sets off. He makes it his life mission to find the people that were involved in the porn and track his daughter down. Oh yeah, she's like also kind of missing. I don't think she's legally missing, but she stopped like talking to her parents or something. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it happens almost immediately after she leaves. Almost as if like she doesn't even show up at school kind of immediately. Yeah. That's exactly how it went. This guy was convinced that his daughter disappeared or got kidnapped. And then this guy shows up with the porn knowledge and it's like, dude, your daughter, the first sign of his daughter is this weird grimy porn film. Filmed on like 8mm or whatever. And he makes it his life mission to hunt these people down. And not to like hurt them, just to like find his daughter. Like, it's... From his perspective, he has very pure intentions. He sees that his daughter was put into a very undesirable situation, and he wants to help her out. I can't remember the order of operations that this happens in, though. I'm pretty sure. Because that whole thing of like, there's only one copy floating around, or there's one or two, like it's a super rare, that's like a good decent chunk of his investigation is him figuring that out. So I'm pretty sure his first ploy, his first like attempt at actually like digging into this case of the missing daughter is he puts out an ad that he is making his own porn film, and he just interviews a bunch of dudes that are trying to be in porn. I think he interviews anybody, but there's mostly dudes that show up, because I'm pretty sure there's a point where he interviews a couple women. But the porn film he watched with his daughter in it has like 2 guys. Why am I going into this much detail about it? I'm supposed to be talking about why I'm afraid of it. Yeah, 2 guys in porn, 1 girl. The girl's the daughter. The father's stressed about it. He's scared. And spoiler alert, the dude turns out the daughter. And this is where the age of the film comes in. And it's kind of where I realized I was dumb for fearing this film. Because obviously she's doing it voluntarily, right? She's obviously doing porn intentionally. She voluntarily signed up. You learn that she's actually the most aggressive one in that video of being like he finds the guy porn stars, and they're like, dude, that girl was crazy. Like, she was biting me and being like psycho. I didn't like her. She was too into it. And like, yeah, she voluntarily started doing porn instead of going to college. And the father takes that as like the biggest atrocity ever. He's like, oh, well, at least I found you, you know, like I can just take you home. But see, like, the ending makes my fear of it just ridiculous. Because obviously that's how it was going to happen. That's how daughters in porn get there, generally, is by voluntarily doing it. And I don't know why I thought this was a fear-mongering film instead of showing the ridiculousness of the fear that I thought it was mongering. Right. I think when I saw the poster and my lack of knowledge pushed me into the headspace of George C. Scott's character. And I think that's kind of the point, is like, you're supposed to sympathize with this man that's afraid that his daughter got kidnapped and forced to do porn. Like, I think there's an inherent fear in most guys of like their children and you know, societal racism built into it. Generally, the thought of a daughter getting stuck, I throw up air quotes when I say that, because, you know, I'm talking about consensual entering of the sex work world or whatever. Sorry, I'm watching an American flag like try and flap, but it's too heavy for the wind. And then there's this orange dump truck that is slowing down too slow for no reason. Yeah, he didn't even turn. What a cunt. Yeah, pass him. Alright. But I was... And I think I write this in my review too. I'm not looking at my review when I talk about this. But my fear of this film is because I was afraid of being George C. Scott in this film. I know as a person that women are allowed to do porn, you know, and I have no right to say something about that. But my and I have I have boomer parents, and part of this fear that I'm talking about is that I inherited and I call it a 1950s ass white man mentality. That's kind of how I refer to it as. But like if you watch the Dick Van Dyke Show, I fear that my family values mirror that, because it's so ignorant, and I know it's ignorant, but inherent responses in my body tell me that I also feel that way sometimes. And I don't know if acknowledging that it's wrong makes me any better than the thing I'm afraid of. Which, like, I'd say, yeah, about, say 2 years ago, I thought about a situation like this. I'd be disgusted, and I would probably make some declarative statement, like, I would find a way to control my daughter into never even considering such an option. You know? But that's not how the world works. And it's not how you should think about it. Like I said, talking about it in hindsight, it makes it sound more ridiculous than it is. And it totally is ridiculous, but when you're internalizing it and not talking about it and not thinking about it through a perspective that you struggle to think through because, you know, there's no outer stimuli to help you process it. So from seeing this film, I realized that, like, hell yeah, that girl's doing porn and she voluntarily is doing it and she likes doing it. And this guy is being controlling and kind of a dickhead by saying you're coming home with me no matter what, and dragging her by her elbow thinking you're doing the right thing. And now I'm on the other side of that film, acknowledging that it's dumb to have any of those thoughts. It's trying to learn about what thoughts are worth hanging on to and which ones eat at you for no reason, and the ones you allow to eat at you for no reason because you think they're necessary to think about. It's reflecting reflections, huh? It's crazy. So, I guess moving on from that, I feel like I've said enough, plus it's been 25 minutes. I'm talking about the next film. I told you I watched 2 films out of these 12 films. It's 10 now, but I've watched 2 of the 12 films I started with on this Films I Fear list. And the second film I watched, which I don't think was too far after. Yeah, it was literally a month later. A month later, I watched Anora. My partner has been wanting to watch it since it came out. And I have been kind of afraid of it since it came out. And again, coming out of it, this one I wouldn't say is as dumb, because I think this is more, it's a little different, I think, with like how I connect to this one, but it's again like coming out of the film realizing that it's obviously not as scary as my mind told it was. And what would Anora be scary, you know? Like, I mean, it's... And that's the question, right? Is what's scary about this movie? It's... And in the most generalized sense possible. It's about a woman being put in a situation she's incapable of saying no to. And I think that's where a lot of the films on the rest of this list lie. Are in situations I can't fathom as being anything but horrible. What was I saying? Fuck. Women in situations they can't say no to. Because if... And this goes for, you know, general rape scenes and stuff, which is, it's weird, right? It's super weird the way I get with this, because I watch some extreme shit, right? I've watched I jokingly say that the chopstick rape in The Untold Story is nowhere near as brutal as the titty twister that he gives to her a second before. Like, I watch and like experience, well, I don't experience reprehensible, but I watch these things, but there's something about certain ones that I can't fully understand, and it all comes back to that sentence I said of women being put in situations they can't say no to. And I don't know exactly why it's women, you know, because because when I reflect on these situations, I fear them not being able to say no, because I look at the situation, look at myself, and I go, there's no way I would be able to say no in a situation like this. And that scares me, because even though it wouldn't happen to me, and that's not true, that me saying that is not definitive, but I would not... Sorry, I lost it. It's an old guy in a Camaro, huh? It's either an old guy in a Camaro or a young guy that got the Camaro from an old guy. Right? Oh, shit. What was I talking about? Women in situations that... Right, so... That's the scary part for me, is like... Because if I was in... And I don't know. But what situation am I saying that Anora is in here? She's voluntarily a high... Like a high... I don't want to say high... Fuck. Let's use Wolf of Wall Street terms, because that's probably the most experience I have with prostitution. She's in the blue chip category of prostitution. She's making larger sums. I think that's what's happening. Or, well, because she's a stripper in the beginning. But she's a stripper for mega rich people, and then she gets like hired by some fucking white boy who's the most annoying person ever. And she spends a week with him. And then some dumb shit happens. Where am I getting with this, though? See, that's just it. It's such a vague fear. It's such a deep-seated, like, I can't figure it out. I can't. I've gotten as close as I have, but I still don't fully get it. The only thing I can say going 2 movies into this list is that clearly I'm overreacting. But at the same time, there's definitely a lot worse to come on this list. And I fear narrowing it down. Like, I don't want to watch the ones I can confidently watch now, because I don't want to be like, all right, now all I have left are these. Because that's even scarier. Because some I know about, right? I don't know. I don't have much to say about Anora because I didn't really like it. And I think it's controversial to say that, which is pretty dumb, because that movie's fucking annoying, dude. If you want, like, that film but better, just watch Crimes of Passion. And you get Anthony Perkins doing, like, the best performance ever. Truly, like, I watched it right after Anora, and I was awe-inspired, and it was based in... Anyway, I don't have much positive to say about Anora. I don't have anything to actually say about the film itself exactly without it being a big rant, which maybe I'll go on one day. You know, I do have room to rant about Anora, but I don't think it's here. But it got me further through the list. It got me a little bit more confidence. It got me a little bit more understanding. And I don't know, man. The idea to say it's scary to think about the idea of being raped is a weird way to start it. But that's basically what I'm saying, right? Is the idea of a woman in a situation that they can't say no to. That's I mean, one of the situations would and could and should, not should, but is a rape. But then I go back to all the extreme horror that I watched, and it makes me question the difference with why the melodrama take on the same situation is somehow more disturbing to me than I don't know, like a man literally jabbing a shard of glass into a woman's vagina. Like maybe it's the extreme to the grounded, right? Maybe that's it. Maybe it's the groundedness of it, the simplicity of it, that is scary. Because to say that I can't imagine what a chopstick rape would be like is probably pretty true. And I think a lot of people can probably agree that they don't know what that could be like. But being stuck in a room with a guy and a gun and no answer but yes, especially when it's not something you want to do, is scary in its own way. Even if you take the gun away, the knowledge of you knowingly will be overpowered if you say no. Bad Lieutenant, man, this got me thinking about it a lot too, because of the nun. Oh my god, dude, the fucking nun. And like, I'm still in the second act of Bad Lieutenant when it comes to understanding forgiveness. I'm yelling at I'm yelling at Jesus, going, what the fuck am I supposed to figure out myself? Why can't you just forgive me? Why can't I forgive myself? So that's Anora. That's Anora on my films I fear list, right? I don't have any specific order for the stuff that remains on the list. I don't have, like, I guess I can say that 2 are probably definitively the scariest. Others, I think I'm definitely being overly dramatic because they're like AAA blockbuster films that are on this list. Like, it's not all independent. What did I even talk about independent? What were the 2 things I just said? Anora, I think, was independent. Well, it's A24. I don't think that counts as being independent anymore. I don't know how that works. So the rest of these films, I will be honest, at least 2 of them involve Harmony Korine, which I think is self-explanatory in itself, but I do have a little bit, I think, to say about that when I'm at 37 minutes. Shit. Alright, well, we're through the things I watched, alright? Let's talk about Kids, I guess. It's probably the one I'm the most educated with. It's the one I was probably the most afraid of for the longest time. And again, this is a film that involves not being able to say no to a situation, but in a completely different way, in a completely more deeply life-ruining, disturbing kind of way. Kids, so I've listened to like 3 different podcasts talk about it, and I just read the screenplay for it the other day. Like, I'm trying to inch my way towards it, and there's no reason to. That some of the people I've listened to talk about it laugh about the film, because it's just a human film. That's the thing, is it's showing raw reality in, like, there's a reason that the kids aren't real actors, and there's a reason that the script is so just blunt and questionable. Like, to know that Harmony Korine was younger, but still, like, it's weird to have an of-age person write underage sex. I think it's pretty fair to say. And when the film is revolving around underage sex, especially borderline statutory rape, underage sex, especially, it becomes like just heavy and just like a slog to even consider. Why would I spend 90 minutes to watch this film about basically like an unknown monster, both by the monster and by the rest of the world? Only one person knows, and she can't talk about it because she got fucking drugged and raped. So Kids is on this list, and I think it's pretty obvious why. I think I need to stick to the whys of this on the list and not get into it, because once I get to films I don't know anything about, it's going to be quick, rapid fire, and I don't want there to be that big of a difference. But, you know, I know a lot about kids, and I did that intentionally because I couldn't handle the idea of opening on a scene of underage sex that inevitably turns into, I mean, it's a movie about AIDS, right? It's an AIDS scare film, actually. It's almost a moral panic film in a way, by being as real as it possibly can. I think a thing is, it's also a culture I don't understand, because I didn't grow up in a mid-90s city. I grew up in the early 2000s suburbs. Outside of the city, I've been to the city, but I was raised to be afraid of people in the city. Like, my parents would wag their fingers at me and say, make sure your wallet is inside your zippered jacket pocket. And, you know, like, don't let go of my hand because you're going to get fucking kidnapped. Like, that was what I was told the city was like. So I have a different perspective on this stuff. And wow, Melissa's going through all of the reviews, going all the way back to fucking Combat Shock. Remember when I talked about Combat Shock? That was when I first started this podcast. At some point. But yeah, so I read through the kids' screenplay recently. I've been going through screenplays in general. That's actually what this episode was going to be before I decided that Films I Fear was a little bit more interesting for me. And a little bit more something I can talk about in a larger conversation. It's a lot of birds. But I've been reading a lot of screenplays. I read Kids, and it's a pretty intense read. You know, but I think after reading it, I'm ready. Like, I literally told my partner, I came up to him, I'm like, hey, since I've read this, and I know you're not going to want to watch it with me, but I think I'm prepared to watch Kids. Saying it out loud is scary enough, and now I have to actually do it. But it took a lot to get to that point, because, I mean, to take the scary story of this guy who, his life goal as a 17-year-old, I don't think he's 18 yet, but if he probably is, honestly, I wouldn't doubt it. If he's not, though, he's going to turn 18 and continue to do the same thing. But, like, because that's how that age works. And, what was I talking about? God damn it. But it's just a film about, so yeah, it's a horror story in two levels, and none of them are genuinely considered horror. The one is that there's a dude going around 17 or 18 years old, and his life goal, his favorite thing to do, which, how do you describe yourself and say my favorite thing to do is to fuck virgins? And to, like, read conversations of, like, the younger, the tighter, the better, like, just, like, gross shit, man, like, really. But at the same time, and this was brought up to me recently through a podcast, one of those people I listened to talking about it, is that no matter what, they're just dumb kids. And there's not a level of forgiveness, but maybe a level of understanding about it. of like not supporting the idiocy, but kind of not demonizing them for being the person that does. And I struggle to get through that because I am definitely one that forms an opinion and kind of sticks with it. I do it to this day. There's people I actively hate that I don't care if I, am rude to them because they barely exist. And it's hard to say that as someone who thinks like that, to be like, yeah, I can also totally forgive a 17-year-old that is a serial deflowerer that is also spreading AIDS unintentionally. And that's where that extra layer of horror is, because now it's not just like this weird age gap, like malicious sex goon that's tricking emotionally underdeveloped girls into having sex with him as the more developed and understanding and manipulative man, and then to also find out that he has AIDS on top of that. So he's fucking virgins, and these girls are having sex for the first time with this garbage ass person, and then they're immediately stuck with AIDS for the rest of their life. I think this was more or less talked about with some people that I heard saying like it was more of a condom ad than it was like an AIDS scare ad. But the way I'm seeing it is more of like AIDS scare. And that's kind of where I can get into it, right? So now it's not just a weird, grotesque story about an adult man writing about this weird serial deflowerer. It's now a moral panic story with a political message that both shows the issues from not paying attention and acknowledging the issue, but also I don't know where that but also is going, because I think I was about to repeat myself, but I don't remember what I said. So yeah, kids, it's scary because it's trying to be. It's trying to be. It's trying to make you think that, like, if a girl is gonna have sex with some older dude, that they're just gonna catch AIDS, and you have to be aware of that. Because I mean, isn't this like an R-rated film? It's not meant to be seen by kids, and that's something that's talked about. I'm not going to talk about that anymore. I'm done. That's kids. Kids is on the list. It makes sense, right? 13 is the next film on this list. Here's one film that I know very little about. And I think my lack of knowledge is exactly what makes me unprepared to watch it. Because the cover is, it's the word 13 with two girls doing acid. And that puts me back to the whole not being able to say no to a situation. So now it's not just about being forced to take the drug, which is scary in itself because peer pressure is real, especially at 13 years old. But now there's also, even if they're voluntarily taking the drugs, now you have drug brain to rely on keeping you safe. And, in the same way that they say, like, if the person is drunker than you, you probably shouldn't, the whole don't take advantage thing. Like, it opens that door. And it's the door that's left open with kids, too, because that's how kids end. Is the only girl that knows about the AIDS is the one that gets fucking drugged and raped twice. And that's kind of where the lingering fear seeps into 13, is because I know very little about it, and all I can read from the description is that it's about 13-year-old kids getting involved in sex and drugs, which you would think from a description like that, I would know that that's very much like a fear-mongering kind of thing. So I should be able to look at it and go, like, this is clearly trying to scare people into educating their children about drugs, maybe. I mean, I haven't watched it or learned anything about it, so I don't know what it's about. My partner said, I think they said they've seen it, and I think they said it's fucked, which doesn't help because, I mean, they don't have the stomach necessarily for some of the fucked shit, but it's still a testimony. And there was also that joke, I think, on some sort of sitcom. They're like, ever since you watched 13, you don't let me go out with my friends. I think... Was Maggie Gyllenhaal in that? Why do I feel like she said that? She didn't. I almost guarantee she didn't, but that's what I'm feeling for some reason. But 13, let me click on the page. Let's see. It's happening so fast when 13-year-old Tracy befriends Evie, the most popular girl in school. Her life is turned upside down as Evie introduces her to a world of sex, drugs, and money. Right. So this isn't just... Oh, right. They're not doing acid on the cover. They have fucking tongue piercings. I was looking at it from far away and had a memory of them doing acid. But still, the word drugs is in the description, so my brain still went there. Damn. How embarrassing. Maybe I should look at the poster before I should talk about it. But I think for 2003, a tongue piercing is just about as shocking as seeing 13-year-olds drop acid. That's like a 2008 kind of thing. That's like late MySpace kind of shit. And then, just looking at this now, it's also directed by a woman. A woman who directed Lords of Dogtown, one of my favorite films ever. And Twilight. One of my nothing films ever. So, like, I know it's in good hands, too. I've even heard the commentary of Lords of Dogtown. I've heard her talk about, like, how she thinks about kids and how seriously she takes everything. But also, I heard the commentary on Lords of Dogtown, and I know that those kids were fucking drunk for 3 days straight during that party scene. So, you know, like, clearly she has the environment to make such a film. And, you know, talking about it out loud now, I think I'm talking myself a little bit into it because, you know, just seeing that Catherine Hardwicke is involved almost makes me more comfortable because I've seen the kind of gross that she's shown. Because a lot of the things I feel and fear to feel going into 13 are things I felt when I was 13 watching Lords of Dogtown. Like when the brother and sister are having sex in the same bedroom. And I'm like, how could you do that? How could you make out with somebody with your sibling sitting right next to you, also doing the same thing? How could you even consider having that loud of like a party with the risk of your dad coming? Like, I'm very much one of those kids, you know, like I'm scared of a lot of authority. And I think that's where a lot of my anxiety comes from. But yeah, so like I've felt things of fear from this woman already, so I think I might be a little bit more prepared than I think for 13 than I really am. So, you know, thanks for being there and listening to me. Next is Sweet Movie. This one I came across super recently, and I don't know anybody. Like, I see a lot of people I follow who have watched it because I think it's very much like a cinephile kind of movie. One of those you have to find, or maybe it's just because it's foreign. Where is this from? They speak English. Plus Polish, German, French, Spanish, and Italian, I see. I don't even the socio-erotic comedy The winner of the Miss World Virginity contest marries, escapes from her masochistic husband, and ends up involved in a world of debauchery. It sounds like it would be fun. She's escaping a masochistic husband. She's winning Miss Virginity. But why is it scary? It's also called a comedy, even if it says erotic comedy. I've come to realize that erotic doesn't always mean like the most intense thing ever. Like, Crimes of Passion is probably one of the best movies I've watched in the last few months, and that is an erotic, I mean, I don't think it's a comedy. I think it's an erotic thriller, but still. It's and I think it's actually the reviews that did it for me. Yeah, it's a weird one for me because I know so little about it, and I make so many assumptions about it. But then I look at it, speaking it out loud, and it seems like it's funnier and more lighthearted than it seems, but also a world of debauchery has a lot of risk. A lot of implied risk. And maybe that's it. Maybe it's just the word debauchery. But that's on the list. Next is Inside. I believe there's like a million films called Inside. So this is the 2007 French Extreme Inside. And this one, I think, also follows that trend of women in situations they can't say no to. Because from what I know of the film, is that it's a pregnant woman. It stars a pregnant woman. And it's also a home invasion film. And those two things put together tells me that her pregnant baby belly is getting cut open. And that baby is probably getting killed. And it's probably going to be so frustrating. Like, Mother was so frustrating because that's what home invasion films are supposed to be. You're supposed to be like, get this dude out of the fucking house kind of feeling. Like in Funny Games where he's like, oh, I dropped the eggs. Can I get 4 more eggs? It's like, no, dude, get the fuck out of the house. You ruined those eggs. It's your own fault. But it's because it's a housewife. I was going to say in like the 90s or 80s, but this is 2007. But I mean, maybe France. I feel like France might be more progressive. Anyway. Home invasion plus pregnant woman equals scary situation. And I think that one speaks for itself. I do really, 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 really want to watch it, though. Because I really like Alexander Aja. Is that his name? Alexandre Aja? Yeah. Alexander Aja. Because I loved his Hills Have Eyes remake. And I loved House of Wax, which I believe, if he wasn't producer on it, the director mentioned him as a direct inspiration. Like, plus I'm pretty sure the director of that was French as well. But it's part of that movement that I'm super interested in. And unfortunately, it falls into a category of films I fear, but it's also films I'm deeply interested in. Plus it has the word harrowing, near-death experience. Like, harrowing is a cool word. I use it all the time. Next, we got another Harmony Korine. I could have put a bunch of Harmony Korine's films on here, but I think after watching Baby Invasion and Gummo, I think I kind of not understand, but I get what I'm getting when I'm jumping into a Harmony Korine film. So I stuck with the one that is most intimidating to me. It wasn't Trash Humpers. I think that one's going to be hilarious. I have a feeling. I just know it's going to be funny. But it's Spring Breakers. This film came out while I was still in high school, and I had a weird obsession with Selena Gomez at some point. So that combination of things, when this film came out, I was like, I don't want to see Selena Gomez get put into a situation she can't say no to. I didn't say it in those words when I was that young, but that's basically what I didn't want to see. Because I, at the time, idolized Selena Gomez, and I was too afraid of seeing her in an extreme role because I didn't want to George C. Scott see her ruined morally by being in a piece of art. Right? Isn't this all like kind of looping around into a big circle in a way? It's interesting because I can talk about it so much like this, but I also can't fucking figure it out. To the point where I'm sitting here looking at a list of 10 films that are very highly rated by people I know, but are just the wrong kind of intense for me. And Spring Breakers, so it came out in high school. I wasn't interested in seeing Selena Gomez get put into a dire situation. I don't care about parties. That's another thing too. You're gonna find that about a lot of things that I watch as I start to talk about things I dislike. I don't like parties like at all, and I think most party scenes are not fun and more annoying and irritating. And this is called Spring Breaker. Spring Break is the most annoying of the teen parties setting. I loathed hearing stories of kids coming back from spring break the year they finally got their license. Because it's just the dumbest, most just unappealing bullshit. And maybe I don't know. I look back at it and I don't regret never attending any of these things because it genuinely, I can look back and be like, yeah, I probably would have hated it. And I'm probably right about that too. The Tina Fey book I'm reading tells me that that's a dumb thing to think and I should, do anyway. But Spring Breakers, and I think it was like A24's breakout movie, right? Like it was a big film to an extent, but I think it was big as teenagers because it was so controversial. Like James Franco is in it. What the fuck? I didn't know that. And he's the main guy. Alan? No, his name's Alien. What the fuck? Yeah, I don't even think I want to watch this, but I can't let it loom over me like that, it's got to be dumb. If anything, if it's not horrifying, it's got to be dumb, right? But, I mean, that's the thing about Harmony Korine, though, is it doesn't matter what the film is. He's trying to say something. At least that's what I think, because, Baby Invasion is so incoherent to the wrong people. But I watched it and I can't necessarily put into words exactly what it's about. But with the use of its AI face mapping and its zero cuts and its sensory attacking visual and audio effects, it's did I say obvious? It's technically obvious. It's not obvious what it's about, but it's obvious that it's about something. And Spring Breakers, I would assume, has something to do with the party mentality of 17-year-olds. I would assume, because he did Kids, which is 12 to 16-ish, with that one guy being the outlier. And now we got spring breakers being teenagers from like 17 to 19, presumably meeting up with. So now it's like if the Telly kid went to spring break and started getting fucking pushed around by some 28-year-old that smokes cigarettes and bangs high school girls. I feel like that's kind of like the shift that's going on there. That's me speculating. Because I know nothing about it other than sex, drugs, beach. It's in Florida too. And people not liking it because it's intense. So that's on the list. There's probably other Harmony Korine films that would also fit on this list, but I can't really think. Maybe that Julian Donkey Boy, but I'm too interested and intrigued to say I'm afraid of it. This next one, I only have one of the 2 volumes on there, but I'll probably replace, if I ever watch Volume 1, I'm definitely replacing it with Volume 2 because I heard Volume 2 is way more intense. Is Nymphomaniac. Again, probably an obvious addition to the list, right? Because it's literally a woman telling a story about all of her intense sexual encounters of various kinds. And I read the first like couple paragraphs of the wiki plot summary, and I gotta say I'm still kind of fucking intimidated by it, because here's where my question of why I can't even consider watching something like this, because in the least weird way of saying it, I kind of really love porn. Like I love, and I haven't watched it in a while. I haven't watched any like good porn films or anything really recently, but I'm itching to. I'm really like, I have Wes Craven's The Fireworks Woman on my shelf that I've been wanting to put in. Like I've been meaning to rewatch all that stuff by the guy who did Night Dreams and Cafe Flesh. And that's literally just porn. I mean, it's artistic porn. Bacchanal was fucking amazing. The opening of Misty Beethoven is the funniest fucking movie I've ever seen, maybe. Well, no, that's not true, but it's funnier than most films. And it's porn. I'd like to introduce you to Geraldine Rich. She is very Geraldine, and she's very rich. That's paraphrasing, but God, Jamie Gillis is so funny. But that's just it. Like, I can watch porn, I can quote porn, I can think about it, but then I think about Nymphomaniac, a film where a woman is telling her stories about, I think they're supposed to start as rapes, but she like loves it too much because that's like her thing, right? Is she's a nymphomaniac. She's obsessed with sex. So it's probably even reverse. It's probably a lot of situations of her pulling guys in to have sex with her rather than her just being okay with really intense situations. But I'm pretty sure I read the opening scene as this woman just like gets a dick shoved in her mouth on a train. And it goes from weird disgust to like satisfied and pleasure. And I don't know why I'm afraid of that. Like, even thinking about Crimes of Passion, a film I've recommended twice already, just in the last hour. That is also that. But even more so because it's like grimy 80s 42nd Street kind of shit. But with Nymphomaniac, it's like, maybe it's the high production value. Maybe it's the director. Was it Lars von Trier? Maybe I'm afraid of him. Because all of his films are kind of intimidating. Melancholia I still haven't watched, and I'm pretty sure I'm told that's just a way better version of Mother. And thinking about that sounds good, because I thought Mother wasn't horrible, but it was just super stressful, and I totally bet Melancholia is fucking amazing. The House that Jack Built, I don't think I ever finished. But I hear that's a pretty fucked film, and I have it on the child death list for a reason, you know? I don't know many of these other ones. Dancer in the Dark, I've heard, is really intense, I think. Breaking Waves, I have no idea. Antichrist, I hear on a lot of lists. But yeah, so, like, maybe it's Lars von Trier that I'm afraid of. But Nymphomaniac is specifically a very hard-hitting problem hurdle in this list. This is the one I was saying, like, I'm afraid to do the other ones because I don't want to be left with this. I don't want to have one film left and it be Nymphomaniac Volume 1. But that's a weird twist on my fear, right? Because Nymphomaniac implies pleasure. She wants it, right? She likes the idea of being treated roughly, or however she's treated throughout the film. I just know at least the opening scene is fairly rough. But that isn't... I'm actually about to say... I was going to say that isn't women being put in a situation they can't say no to. But hypothetically, if this whole film is sexual assaults turned into pleasure, then it still kind of is. It's just she gets off on the option or the lack of options. Like I said, never seen it. I've read like a paragraph on the thing. I've read a few people's reviews about it. Like, I am very uneducated on it. But from my perspective, I still don't think I'm ready. The next three are actually... They're kind of on a whim. They're not films that I'm deeply afraid of, but they're films that I know, looking at it, fall into the same category. So next is Wasted. And this is probably the most obscure, maybe, of the films. Maybe next to Sweet Movie. But Wasted is from 2002. It has the dude that plays Jesse Pinkman in Breaking Bad, Aaron Paul, in it. And I found a DVD of it at Goodwill a long time ago. And I'm like, that's awesome. That's a super young Jesse Pinkman. And I bought it just because of that. But then I looked into it and I'm like, oh, this kind of feels like a 13 kind of situation. Reading the description, it actually... Summer Phoenix. It actually kind of looks a little bit more like Basketball Diaries than it is like the one I just said. I don't think I even said one. Fuck. Anyway, it's probably the fact that it says the words friends abuse heroin in the description, because as I've described in the past, especially during my discussion on Bad Lieutenant and Combat Shock, I hate watching people do heroin in movies. And it goes for most needles, but it's the most extreme when it comes to heroin. And like, again, I've never experienced heroin. I've never done heroin. I have a general fear of needles, but my fear is all from a distance, ignorance maybe. But that's probably all that is to this film, really. Like I said, these are kind of thrown in because I look at them and I get a similar feeling, but it's not as intense as these first 8 that I talked about. So that's kind of it, I think, for Wasted. It's probably the one that's going to get knocked off the list the soonest out of the rest, except maybe the last one. So that's kind of it for Wasted. Requiem for a Dream. Now, the more I learn about Charlie Kaufman, the more I realize that this might be a mistake to even be on the list. Oh no, this is Darren Aronofsky. It's the other one that's Charlie Kaufman, right? The Spotless Mind. Spoilers, that's also on the list. But Requiem for a Dream, Darren Aronofsky. That's the guy that did Mother. Okay, yeah, so we're still in the same vein. Caught Stealing was good, by the way. Drug-induced utopias of 4 Coney Island residents are shattered when their addictions run deep. So this, again, I think it falls into the same category as Wasted, where it's more or less me inherently assuming rather than actually thinking about it. Because, I mean, Darren Aronofsky, as Mother entails, it is an intense film. He can make intense films. But this might be more psychologically philosophical. Maybe more philosophical than it is horrific. It's a low threat on the films I fear list. Like, probably similar to Wasted, it'll probably come off sooner than any of the first 6, 8. Eternal Sunshine of a Spotless Mind. This film, I don't necessarily know why I want to avoid this film. Yeah, this is the one written by Charlie Kaufman. The fact that it's written by Charlie Kaufman tells me that it's probably not nearly as bad, and it's probably way more melodramatic, which means I'm probably not going to react to it as intensely as I expect to. But you can erase someone from your mind. Getting them out of your heart is another story. Isn't it like it's about memories, right? Yeah, it's about him trying to forget about this woman. And I guess inherently not being able to. Again, know very little about it. It's actually one of the most popular films on this list, and I think it's funny that I know nothing about it, but it's because it made me uncomfortable growing up. I didn't want to watch it because, like, and honestly, I don't like Jim Carrey that much. I like some films that have Jim Carrey in it, but I don't necessarily go like, oh, I gotta see this Jim Carrey film. Like, I don't do that. And what was it, 7? Or no, not 7. Number 7, number 12, whatever it is, that other thriller he was in. I like that one for the most part. I don't think I've ever watched it beginning to end, but I've seen it on TV a few times and caught it on the cables. It was acceptable. But it's not a draw for me. Like, I'm not saying like I gotta see Jim Carrey be serious. Super ethereal, because I mean, yeah, it's heartbroken. His girlfriend underwent a procedure to erase him from her memory. He decides to do the same. However, as he watches his memories of her fade away, he realizes that he still loves her and may be too late to correct his mistake. What? Yeah, see, I know so little about this movie. I've never even read that blurb before. Yeah, look at that. Yeah, that one might just be taken off the list outright, honestly, because it sounds like some Charlie Kaufman bullshit. You know, I shouldn't say it like that, because he's gotten me before with his bullshit, and I only call it bullshit because I didn't like adaptation, I guess. Him adapting himself into an adaptation about a book he was supposed to adapt instead of adapting the book himself. That whole thing bothered me, and I think it's made me weary of Charlie Kaufman. So even though this is a highly rated film, it might be like a Godfather, and it might just be like I may never watch it. We'll see. time will tell. Like I said, there's a reason I change my top 20 every 6 months. It's because I do change, and some more extreme films have made it to my top 20 in the last year than I ever would have fathomed 2 years ago. So it's all just a right now thing. And that's part of me, that's kind of part of it. The last film on this list is I Saw the TV Glow. And this one is a little weird for me. I guess I've been saying that the entire time, but I watched the other one by this director, the Let's All Go to the World's Fair film. And it required me to do some Googling to understand it. Well, I should say to understand it fully. Because some of the stuff I read, I went, oh, so I did get it. It's just not as impactful as I thought it'd be. And I think I Saw the TV Glow has like a reputation for maybe like one of the best of the new age of horror. Like a step further than the elevated horror that was coming out before it, but like existential technology. And apparently it's trans focused too, so like a lot of the trans people I follow also just love it for the representation. I think that's why they love it. I'm just assuming. But this is one that the ambiguity is what makes me scared of it, I think. Because it's one of those films I know that if I read about it, I'm probably not going to find it impactful. But I also don't want to be impacted in the way that people are saying they are by the film. I also have this. Now, this is not really a fear, but kind of like a concern that maybe I'm just officially too old for certain movies. Because, like, I'm barely 30. I'm not 30 yet, but I've also lived in a world before the internet, right? A short time. A very short time. I shouldn't even say a world before the internet. I existed in the world of the internet, but I didn't have access to the internet until I was like 11 or 12. Maybe. No, yeah. Like 10, I think. Because I was on YouTube when it first started. Watching Weird Al music videos and shit like that. But I feel like it's made for teenagers that were born after like 2008. And I think because of that, even if I were to watch it and understand it, I have a feeling I might hate it. Because I just, like, I'll see it and go like, yeah. Or even worse, and this is actually the thing I didn't like about Let's All Go to the World's Fair. I don't want to Google the answers. Granted that, like, if I maybe paid attention better, maybe I would have gotten it more. But no, that's not true, because I read it and went, oh, so I did get it. It didn't hit. And I don't want that to happen either. Because, like, I love a deep dive. I love a retrospective. I've watched 6-hour videos on the history of like, a single video game franchise. Like, I love that shit. Where was I going with that? What am I talking about? I Saw the TV Glow. Not being impactful to me at my age. Living in a slight bit of world without computers. Man. Fuck, I forgot. Oh, yeah, Googling stuff. I don't want to have to feel the requirement to go on the internet and have someone on Reddit tell me the things I missed. It's different if I was scrolling through YouTube and they're like 10 things you missed, and I went, oh, that's interesting. I kind of want to see what I missed. But to go like, what the fuck happened? I need to look that up. I hate that. That's stupid. I don't want to have, like, it's the same reason I don't really play Dark Souls games that much. I hate having a wiki open simultaneously. Like, I don't, if I have to have a second screen of like information, I think I hate it. That's different for board games though, because I love when you have multiple things. So maybe there's like a physicality thing to that, but that's something I don't want to have to deal with I Saw the TV Glow. And my lack of knowledge of it is for the better when I eventually do watch it, but my lack of knowledge of it tells me that it's probably not something that I'm going to resonate with, both because I'm not I'm not a trans person, so if there's any identity thing with that, I can't guarantee I'll be able to identify it and relate to it myself. But then there's also this idea that I'm not gonna, I don't know, did I just say that already? I don't know. I'm going to go in circles with this. I can do it constantly. It's just what I do. But I don't know. Teenager Owen is trying to make it through life in the suburbs when his classmate Maddie introduces him to a mysterious TV show, a vision of the supernatural world beneath their own. In the pale glow of the television, Owen's view of reality begins to crack. And who knows, maybe it will resonate with me too much, and it will bother me that way too. Because reading that description, it sounds like it's more or less about the obsession of like clinging to media as a way of progressing through life, which is absolutely, as someone who watches a film every day and reads my books on break at work and tries to write as much as possible, like, I care about that stuff. Maybe I don't want whatever this fear is that people talk about with this film. Maybe I don't want it. Maybe I don't want to be introduced to this mysterious TV show that shows me a world that I want, that makes me question, like, what reality is worth being. So that's the list. That's the list of films I fear. As you noticed, and as I noticed once talking about it, that those last 4 films are kind of fluff. They're kind of there because I have a feeling that I'm not going to like them. And I'm afraid of not liking them. It's not a fear of the content. It's a fear of how I'm going to react to the content. Well, that's kind of what I'm doing with the other ones too, just in a different scale. It's different. And those last 4, although are intimidating, they don't come close to a Nymphomaniac or a Spring Breakers or an Inside. Because they're not actually extreme. Maybe not Wasted. Wasted might be extreme. I don't know anything about that film. I just know Aaron Paul is in it, and I know it's about heroin. That's it. It could very well be super fucking grimy and really fucked up. But Requiem for a Dream, Eternal Sunshine of a Spotted Mind, and I Saw the TV Glow are all films with really long titles. And they're also films that I fear I won't like, and I don't want to not like them. Maybe that's another level to it. Because I'm so into it, of like hating on things. Like, my first episode is hating on the Purge films, which are objectively shit, but like, why would I go on a rant about disliking something? Why would I want to? Oh, to vent it out, I guess. I'm done. That's the episode. Anything but Ted at Gmail. Ugh. Anything but Ted at gmail.com. I don't know if you're on my car microphone right now, so I probably sound different. My partner called me. It's time to go. So, yeah, that's the end of the episode. Enjoy me rushing out the door. Goodbye.